So I want to open up this power portal with a little prayer. And this prayer is to block any evil eye, any negative energy, any naysayers who love to tap in, even though they don't fuck with me. I just want to allow the energy to cleanse them away. And I want to bring the vibes to the people who do fuck with me, the people who are about the energy of this podcast, which is about elevation, which is about rebirth, transformation, wisdom, holistic wellness, Black joy, healing, and spirituality. I am your host of the Power Portal, Jewel Cadet, also known as Jewel the Gem. Ancestors was like, say cadet, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, those in respect of my name. So, I wanted to start off this initial podcast with an energy around healing, and even though I know I named all those like buzzwords, oftentimes podcast can, not incorporate cursing. We're going to do that. Podcast not going to talk about, tapping into different forms of spirituality. We're going to do that over here. Okay. No respectability politics up in this thing. And so I wanted to really open up the power portal on this 222, talking about an experience that is completely life changing. And so on 1/11/2024, so 111, you get the vibes. Do you just stop right now? Do you get the vibes? Do you get the angel numbers? Do you get the energy? Okay, check in, tap in, be about it. So on 1/11/2024, I had a total laparoscopic hysterectomy. And that means that my entire uterus was removed along with my cervix and fallopian tubes. And why am I starting here? Well, I think about ancestors when I think about this surgery. I think about J. Marion Sims and many other white doctors like him of the time who experimented on Black women and girls as young as 11. RIP to Lucy, Betsy, and Arnica, who had these heinous procedures performed on them with no general anesthesia, which was available at the time. And in his medical journal, he wrote that Black women didn't feel pain, that Black girls didn't feel pain. And because these women and girls were in enslavement, they didn't have the capacity to give consent. So this was done against their will, right? This was done without bodily autonomy. And so we fast forward to 1/11/2024, and I was under general anesthesia. Okay. I was sedated as well. Okay. On top of that. And I had a Black doctor, I had a, predominantly Black care team. And while people may consider it an elective procedure, there were things that were happening in my body that made this urgent. And so before I even tell the story, I just want to make space for the history of Black people with a uterus and all of the ways that our bodies was used for medical experimentation and all of the pain that Black bodies have felt, right? So I want to open up with that energy, and I invite for you to lean into that as well, because the reason why I had to have this surgery is because I had fibroids in my uterus, in and around my uterus. And, I was diagnosed, I'm 36 now as at the recording of this podcast, and I was diagnosed at the age of 28. And when I was first diagnosed, they were like, if it's not going to be any problems, don't come in. If it's, it doesn't, a lot of people have them, but they may not cause you complications. So when they do, you come in, but until then, just sit tight. And I was scared when I got the diagnosis because I grew up in a household where fibroids was a scary word. My mom had fibroids before I got my first period, at 10 years old, which, fun fact, was on 1/11/1998. Wow. And look at me getting a hysterectomy on 1/11/2024. Come on, full circle. And, you know, before I even got my cycle, I watched my mom navigate heavy bleeding, like just life changing, can't go here. Oh my, and I was like, Mom, how long is your cycle? She was like, 10 days. I'm like, 10 days? So when I got my period, I was terrified because I didn't know if I would bleed that heavy, and I always have. And my mom had a hysterectomy when I was in high school, and she didn't have a laparoscopic hysterectomy, so it wasn't robot assisted. She had to have the super long incision, which is like the traditional hysterectomy route. And I saw the staples in her skin, and I was scared, so I just remained scared. Okay, from the cycle to the surgery, scared. So we fast forward to age 28, and I get this diagnosis, and I'm like, scared again. Insert that word over and over and multiply it and italicize it and put it in highlights in bold. And so they didn't tell me to change my diet. They didn't tell me any type of lifestyle changes, right? And so I go about my life, and then I get complications. One day on my way to work, I was like, okay, I have like 10 minutes before I gotta go in. Because I was a person, my work schedule was 10 to 6. Let me tell you, baby, I'm walking in the door at 10 o'clock. I'm out by 6. I ain't giving no extra time. So I was like, oh, I got 10 minutes. Let me go to the pharmacy and just get some like face wash things and things like that, right? So I go to the pharmacy and I don't have any underwear on. I ain't got no panties on. Ain't got no panties on. And my cycle had already ended. So I have this dress on. I have these like Timberland boots. Shout out to the Timberland boots. I'm a New Yorker. And I had my Timberland boots on. I had this like skirt. It was cute. And all of a sudden, while I am at the pharmacy across the street from my job, stalling before going into work, blood just seeps down from my thighs to my legs. And then I look down and it's on the floor and it's on a small puddle, starts to kind of form. It's on my boots. And I immediately just gasped and ran, dropped the things and ran out the door, across the street, up the stairs, through the door at my job, into the bathroom, and cried because I didn't know what was going on with me. And, I cleaned myself up and went about my day. And I realized that I needed to do something for my fibroids. And so I went the route of being vegan. More on that later. We'll get to that, in future episodes. But I decided to be vegan after reading and doing some research around how that type of diet can help to balance the hormones and not allow your fibroids to grow bigger, right? So the journey, right? And so we kind of move through the years, and I still have heavy periods, but for the most part, they start and they stop. Fine. It's okay for 7 days. It starts and it stops. But then it reaches about, now we're fast forwarding to 2021. At that point, that's my 34th year. So now we're in a place of, what do I do that now I'm spotting in between periods, right? So I'm bleeding heavy, but then I'm spotting in between periods. I don't like that. I don't like that, you know? And so now I'm having a cycle and then I'm spotting, and I'm spotting. So then technically I'm now bleeding more outside of my cycle. That's irregular bleeding, right? So then we get to a point where my cycle is so intense. This is early 2022 at this point. My cycle is so intense where, if you think about the Ultra tampon, which to my knowledge is the most absorbent tampon, that is filled within 22 minutes. I set a timer. It wasn't even a full 30 minutes. Every 22 minutes, I'm having to change my tampon. And that is not supposed to be the case. Anybody listening, if you have a cycle, because this is not about women's health, this is uterine health. This is anyone who has a uterus can relate to potentially knowing what a cycle feels like. And you might be gasping right now, or you might be relating right now if you've also had periods like this, intensive, extensive, irregular periods like this. And so my cycle was doing that. And then so then it just, the spotting, the in between spotting after my cycle became just extended days. So now my anemia is activated. Anemia has entered the chat. I'm not even thinking about what anemic symptoms are. And I'm not putting together that when I was younger, I was anemic. I'm not even putting together that bleeding in this way would activate anemia. I'm not even thinking about it because in my mind, I was like, oh, anemia just means you're cold, right? Like that's what it means. So now, early 2022, I am now bleeding extensively, right? So irregular bleeding, in between bleeding, heavy bleeding, all that type of stuff. But I'm also having headaches. I'm also throwing up randomly. I'm also having a loss of appetite. I'm also having blurred vision. I'm also hearing ringing in my ears. I'm also feeling lightheaded when I do things that are active for maybe more than 10 minutes at a time. And then I'm just like, something isn't right, right? If you add all of those things up, you're like, my body is trying to tell me something. My body is trying to tell me something. So I listen. Now, it does take time for that to happen, right? I don't feel all those symptoms and then I'm like, gotta go to the doctor. Because at this time, it's COVID and the thought of going to a hospital was scary for me. Insert that word. You see how when it comes to health, it can feel scary. And so I finally go, and the doctor was like a clinic, and he's taking all my blood work, vitals, and all that type of stuff. And he's very concerned. He calls the next morning. He's like, I'm going to call in 2 days with your blood work. He calls the next morning urgently. He says that my blood level is a 3.7, a healthy hemoglobin is a 13. He said that at that level of a 3.7, that my heart was going to stop because it was potentially enlarged, because now my body is having to work overtime to pump the blood, right? The very minimal blood, right? Because I'm losing so much from my cycle. And at this point, I'm like, is it a cycle? Because it's not ending. It's just vaginal bleeding at this point. So it's time to go to the ER, right? Now, in true Jewel the Gem fashion, I am telling my partner at the time, who's not my wife, but at that time we were dating. Um, And so I'm like, she's like, we gotta go. Heart about to stop? Oh no, we gotta go. This is emergent. This is an emergency. We gotta go to the ER. I go to the back and Jewel Gym fashion. And I'm like, let me get a wig. Let me get a little hospital wig. Let me put a little. She's like, girl, let's go now. And if anybody knows her, she's not a person who like raises her voice or anything like that. But she was very much like, oh no, we got to go. Urgent, urgent tone. And so we go, and the doctors and nurses are like, I have no idea how you're able to walk in on your own with that type of blood level. Like, I don't even know how you've been able to do that. But insert black women, insert black women knowing how to mask pain. And, it brings me back to what J. Marion Sims said in his journal about black women don't feel pain. And it's not true. We do feel pain. What is true is that we may not feel like we have the space to express it. We may not feel like we have the space to sit in it, right? So then we may stall going to the doctor because we also know that the medical industrial complex isn't a space that feels safe. Those could be true. And for me, all of that was true. And so I, at the time, had to get at 3.7 blood level, I had to get 3 units of a blood transfusion. Not one, not two, but 3 units of a blood transfusion. 3 units of a blood transfusion. Yeah, I repeated that 3 times, or maybe 4. Who's counting? Maybe you are. But I say all that to say that I never had a blood transfusion before. I needed all these units. I am what's the word? Scared. I'm scared. So I have to be hospitalized. I'm there for about 2 days and really begging at that point to leave because I was really trying to get my blood levels up. So I was able to get to a point where I was able to leave. So we bring it further, right? Let's bring it to 2023. We're almost at 2024. Let's bring it to 2023. I'm like, you know what? No, let's bring it to 2022. Yes. Timeline. Okay. 2022, later that year, I'm like, I have to do something, right? I have to see if these fibroids can leave my body. So the Black gynecologist, shout out to Dr. Stafford at Emory, okay, Dr. Jade Stafford, everything, love her. She was very big on a hysterectomy is a very big procedure. It's a very big decision. And she didn't want to go there immediately because I went there for pain management. I went there for like cycle management. And so I wasn't thinking of removing the entire uterus at that time. I was like, remove these fibroids. She then said, well, once your body makes fibroids, you now have a body that produces fibroids. And even if we remove them all, there's a high chance that they will come back because your body just does that. Now, I want you to sit with that because that is extremely hard. Fibroids impact over 90% of Black people with a uterus. Okay. Once again, not women's health. This is uterine health. Now, binary people, trans men, a variety of different bodies may be experiencing all that I'm sharing. So let me be very clear that this is uterine health. And so she opts to go into a more minimally invasive surgery, myomectomy. And with that, she's like, I'm going to also put in a hormonal IUD that will also help for your periods to be lighter. I'm like, okay, lighter periods. Okay, I only got one of the 3 fibroids removed at the time because she felt like that was the one that was causing a lot of the issues. So I'm like, okay, boom, minimal invasive, go through that. They also gave me in the doctor's office a pill that was supposed to stop my period prior to that surgery. So let's just break down what my body did. My body continued to bleed even though I was taking hormones that was supposed to stop it. That's one. 2, after the surgery, the hormonal IUD fell out. No one knows where it is. I never seen it, never saw it. The doctor never seen it, never saw it afterwards. I mean, they put it in, they know it was in there, but it fell out. So now let's fast forward. Now let's go to 2023. 2023. So to be clear, the reason why I had to get to the myomectomy, right? I bled for 9 months in 2022. I finally get to a place where I'm bleeding back to a cycle again, 10 days. Some herbs helped with this. But in 2023, which is the year of my wedding, my community wedding, my chosen family wedding, where everybody's coming together and celebrating love, and the entire year is I'm planning with this, with my partner, with my life partner, I'm experiencing a lot of life changes in my body. I'm not understanding why my body is not reacting in a healed way after this surgery or after the pills or after the hormonal IUD. I'm just like, why isn't it cooperating? So in 2023, I'm traveling all over and I'm making music, and every single time I am having to bring my pads, I'm bringing my period diapers, not panties, but diapers. Okay? So what did that look like on the inside? Tampon in, pad on a panty, diaper over that. It was like preparing for some sort of, okay, just to leave the house. Okay. And So 2023 was that. And I think about times where people were like, oh, let's hang out. And I would literally be like, oop, that's during the super, super heavy days of my cycle. So I can't. Oh, you're going to perform here. We don't have space for you in the trailer where you have to give me a trailer because I need to have access to a bathroom because I need to change my things. Right? That's what it looked like. It looked like, oh, I want to wear this outfit and this outfit, but I got to make sure that I have black shorts underneath because even though I finish my quote unquote cycle, I may bleed in between. Never know. And so these are the things that I was experiencing while I was experiencing life, while I'm experiencing planning for a wedding, while I'm experiencing traveling for my music, while I'm experiencing being a radio show host. While I'm experiencing life, I'm also experiencing a rebirth. And the reason why I'm experiencing the beginning of a rebirth is because that is when I realized that the fibroids have to leave my body. And that means the uterus has to leave my body because since my body just makes fibroids, it just does that, right? Because my body just has an excess, amount of estrogen. It just does that. I knew that it was time to go. And that was the beginning of the rebirth. That recognition of something big has to happen. So I go back to the doctor and make this decision and set up the surgery date and everything that it took to get to that place on 1/11/2024 was a part of the rebirth. And as I'm recording this, and as this actually on the day this drops, let's go for that. On the day this drops, it will be 6 weeks post op. I'm pausing here because I'm recording in front of my altar, in front of my ancestor altar, and I'm getting emotional because that was a big decision, yet it was an easy decision at the same time. And easy doesn't mean that I came to it quickly. It just meant that when I think of choosing me, that's easy. And choosing me meant having a body that feels healthy. And I knew that I didn't want to have babies from this body. More on that later in future episodes. And so I'm like, why keep this in when that's not what I want to do? Why preserve a uterus that is hurting me, right? That is not allowing me to live my best life. And so when I think about the transformation that I experienced to get me to this point, I'm incredibly proud of myself for making the decision to choose me, to choose to live a better life, a life that doesn't feel debilitated by tampons and pads and diapers and cancel plans and not going on road trips because you have to stop on this corner of a road because you have to change your cycle. I mean, change your pad. Wish you could change your cycle. Or knowing or feeling like a surgery, the first one, was going to help and it didn't. I no longer have to deal with that. I no longer have to do. And that is so full circle for me that on 1/11/1998, the period entered the chat, and on 1/11/2024, it exited the chat. And I am so happy that I made that decision because now, as I'm recording this and when this airs, my body is free. One of the things that I'm most excited for is to wear white, to wear white without any precautions, to go back to being underwear free if I want to, with no precautions. And so, what you're listening to at this point of the podcast is real and raw. And, at this point, where it airs 6 weeks, I'm recording it at the fifth week. I'm in such a different place in my body. And I know that my anemia is better. I know that my mental health is better. In 2022, where I bled for 9 months straight, I felt so disconnected to my body, y'all. I felt so disconnected to my body. I remember speaking to my therapist and using the analogy of I felt like my body was in the next room because I was angry at it. I was mad at it. But when I think about my body has saved my life and my body has fought for me. Going into the surgery, around the time of the pre-op for the surgery, which is a month beforehand, my blood level was at a 5.7, 5.2, which is still not just severely anemic, life-threatening. Anything under a 6 is life-threatening. And so while I am preparing, I'm also being told, hey, you're still at a life-threatening level. So you're not at a 3.7 where you were in 2022. But in December 2023, as we prepare for your surgery, in a month, you are at a 5. I know that the next time I get my blood taken, I know that I'll be better. And that makes me really happy. And so the emotions that I'm feeling is the sadness and the pain that I had to experience all these years, and the disconnection that I felt from my body, from my sensuality, from my sexuality, from my spirituality, because I went in front of my altar and I'm like, why? Why won't y'all heal this? Shout out to all my Reiki friends. I'm like, why isn't Reiki healing it? Why can't I pray the pain away? And so we get to the day. We get to 1/11/2024. And in this moment, I'm incredibly grateful for being raised in a house of medical advocacy, because the way that I advocate for myself medically is top tier. It really is. And I can spend time focusing on all of the preparation that I had to do mentally. But what I want to do is just walk you through what the hysterectomy has done for me spiritually. What it has done for me spiritually is an understanding that my body doesn't have to feel pain, right? And then even though I can push through and I can pretend, because I can feel a lot of these. I have felt, I did feel a lot of those symptoms, and people just didn't know. People closer to me, I could be living with you, and you just didn't know because I hid it really, really well, right? And so spiritually, I was able to feel free from the pain and know that actually, instead of being mad at ancestors, instead of being mad that the pain won't be prayed away or reikied away or energetically removed in any type of way away, I realized that actually making the decision and choosing me was actually the healing, and that actually was the spirituality elevation that I needed. And so when we get to that day, spiritually, I'm in a good place. I'm in a really good place. And when I exit the hospital, same day, and I get into the car, one of the first things I said is, we about to go to the club. And I'm laughing at that because, they said that after anesthesia, you could be irritable, you could be really sad. I was joyous. I was so joyous. And I remember people contacting me and asking me, how I was feeling. And a few people I sent some anesthesia sedated voice notes, so y'all should keep those. But I remember one of the most healing things that really signified that rebirth was happening was I really sat there and I said, even with all the pain that I'm experiencing post surgery, it doesn't compare to what I experienced over these last few years. And that is bittersweet because it's bitter because I'm like, this actually ain't got nothing on the pain that I experienced. But it's sweet because I don't have to experience it anymore. And there's a few things I want to share for people who might want to get a hysterectomy one day. One, know that your body is not a site of familial honor, which means we live in a world that's like, well, your body is meant to produce, and if you have a uterus, that meant that it is there for you to have a baby, and that's how you carry on legacy. And listen, for people who believe that children are legacy, that is a separate conversation, not willing to argue about it. But what I will say is that your body is meant for more than producing. Our lives are meant for more than just producing legacy. Our lives are meant to be lived. And if your body is a place where your livelihood is impacted by pain and tumors and all these things, you have the right to free yourself of it. You have that bodily autonomy to do that. And so there were a few things that were a part of the hysterectomy recovery journey that I thought of that I was like, I want to put in here. I want to do that. So they give you a binder, a pelvic abdominal type of binder. And let me tell you something. This binder is important. However, laughing. They talk about wearing it if you got to walk around or like being mindful about laughing. My wife was cracking me the fuck up the entire recovery. I mean, I was just laughing like it was so wild. And so I was like, wear your binder if you got to walk, but also try to figure out how to adjust your body when you're laughing because that was really hard. You will experience a form of gastric pain. I already had gastric issues going in, so I was extremely susceptible to that being on like 10. So I'm like, have your Pepsid, have your Gas X, like have all your things that you need because you can take that alongside with your painkillers. As for painkillers, they gave me Oxy, they gave me ibuprofen and Tylenol. Um, addiction is real, so and I never took Oxy, so I only took 4 of those pills and then got rid of the 11, put that away, stored it away to not be used. I don't even know where it is. I just put it away. And just kind of every 4 hours alternated between Tylenol and ibuprofen, and that helped. Um, I thought about bathroom chronicles. One of the things that happens to your body because they have to basically insert all of this air in your body for them to get to all the things that you need. And so create a bathroom space that is very comfortable for you. So for me, I did like very low red lighting. I did a lot of deep breaths. I mean, a lot of like, what do you call it? Hip movements, because what happens is you're also very constipated, you're a little backed up. And so you're a little backed up. And so you're a little backed up. I said it 3 times because that's how backed up you're going to be. And so creating the bathroom to be an oasis in a lot of ways. There was a lot of prayer happening in there. There was a lot of like, because you're not supposed to strain. Oh, this is getting real portal. Okay, we in the portal. Get into it. You're not supposed to strain. So just deep breaths and like movements. And I was telling my wife, it was like, I used a lot of Negro spiritual chanting, vocalizing, to kind of just get my body into a specific space and also allow me to breathe in a particular way. And so that really helped. And so, it's funny. The day that I'm recording this, I just purchased some bathroom things to kind of like elevate my bathroom a little bit more because, or in a different way, because I feel like there was so much energy that I moved in the space, and I don't just mean bowel movement, but just the energy that I used from the singing and the humming and the moving into the red light and the Reiki and the prayer, that now I'm like, it needs new energy. So do that for your 6 weeks, and then after, treat yourself with some new energy. So I'm about to put some new curtains. It's about to be a new vibe because this bathroom was a very particular oasis. And having people there to provide support is really helpful. I knew that I wanted to be able to do a lot of things myself at the same time when it came down to like bathroom needs. So I always took, I took my showers by myself, like unassisted. And then my wife definitely helped with like putting my clothes and everything on, but I really wanted to make sure that I was able to do some things by myself, just spiritually, and not on some like hyper independent shit, but just like wanting to be able to do that for me, and having that certain level of like caretakerness for me. Um, Surround yourself with people with good vibes, like, my wife was amazing during it. Friends who texted and called were amazing. Friends who flew down, y'all know who y'all are. Friends who are family, really. So have people around you who are just full of good vibes. Um, I mean, there's so much, but those were a few that I was thinking about. And two of the last most important ones is listen to your body, and listen to your body in the sense of, you know, laparoscopic. A laparoscopic hysterectomy is different than a traditional one. Sometimes, for the most part, the recovery time is shorter. And on the outside, I mean, I literally have these two tiny incisions, and sometimes you could be like, oh, I'm fine, but you're still not fine, and that's something that they told me beforehand. But to know that and feel that is real. So give yourself the space to just feel and listen to your body. And if you walked for too long, sit down, like just do that. And that's the last part is know that you deserve rest. And not just when you're in pain, but just as a general practice, you deserve rest. You just did a big thing, but you deserve rest and allow yourself the time to fully, fully, fully recover. Um, that was one of the hardest for me because I wanted to just do things. I wanted to get up and get back into my routine. And it's like, no, you can't do that. I like to walk my 3 miles and can't do that. You do got to move your body though, but not no damn 3 miles. Can't do that. I'm not going to be cleared to exercise for a little bit. I like to do my yoga. I like to hula hoop. I like to, do different cardio activities. I like to dance. I haven't twerked in 6 weeks. I mean, the stress of it all. I've like just been shoulder dancing. It's hard. It's hard. And so just knowing to just be still and to allow your body to heal, allow your mental health to heal. There were so many things, so many downloads that I had during the recovery period that really had me being like, wow, I am on a whole different level. Like, I am looking at life in such a different way, which those things will come up in future episodes. I wanted this first episode to be about the entire, procedure, but there were definitely some spiritual downloads, some thoughts, some things, some stories, some things that just came to my head in these last few weeks that I wrote down, which will be all in the podcast. And I'm like, oh yeah, the wisdom is here, right? The holistic wellness is here. The healing is here. The rebirth is here. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Power Portal. Know that when you tap into your power, you create your own portal.